There's the noise. Perfect.
All right.
So what we're doing today is we're running through the new vaults and pillar system through Fortress. So I am Paul Stout. I am a longtime GridPane user and owner of Stout Web Solutions and HIPAA compliant hosting, both of which leverage the Fortress security platform, specifically for WordPress. But we have with us today Calvin, who is an amazing developer who created the Fortress system that we rely on for our WordPress security. So as we run through the process of how to be able to create these pillars, we're going to touch on encrypting postmark API key via the FluentSMTP plugin, as well as the Cloudflare API key via the Cloudflare official plugin.
Right.
Let me introduce, without further ado, Calvin.
Sure.
Big cheers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to do this, like give a little practical rundown of the feature. We'll try to make it as approachable as possible, and basically I'll let Paul discover these things a bit, and then I will guide him through some key points, and yeah, we're going to take it slowly, step by step, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Perfect. So let's get started. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I will likely look foolish as we get started, but we have a demo site that we set up specifically for this webinar today. And we've already installed and activated Cloudflare and Fluent Forms and SMTP. So before doing anything, we're just going to go through and show that everything works currently, right? So we're going to set this up. We're going to run a test email through FluentSMTP, just to show you that, everything's working as it should. iCloud, we're going to send a quick test. There it is, delivered successfully, logs, here we go. And then in
this is
email,
just the stock plugin version, so nothing is
nothing else. There's no modifications to the code, purely brand new WordPress install, as you'll see in a little bit here, plus these 3 plugins were installed, and that's it. Here's our WordPress test right here. You can see that we're using my email address that's publicly available right here, and that is the setting that we have set up right there inside of Postmark. So as you can see, all we basically did was we created a server here in Postmark. We grabbed the API key. We went ahead and added it into the Postmark configuration for FluentSMTP, and we just configured it so that we were able to save it. So in this mode, we're using the database store rather than the config file store. So the setup process would obviously be different if you used a config file. But for our purposes, we're going to talk about the database today.
And we can also like talk a little bit about why the config storage is better than a database if you don't use vaults and pillars, but why it's also not ideal. It's like common misconception in my opinion.
Go into it. We got time. Let's do it.
I mean, so basically what you always want to avoid is having sensitive data stored hard-coded in plain text anywhere. So whether it be in a database, I mean, if you put like stored in database, is also in sort of sense like hard-coded. I mean, okay, you can change it, but for all purposes, it's like stored there and doesn't really change much. But it's the same thing if you like drop it in a constant in a PHP file or a WP config file. It's also hard-coded, stored in a file that is like accessible to the system user that is running the WordPress site, the PHP system user. And unfortunately, there's like there are more SQL injection vulnerabilities in WordPress, so it's more common to be able to read from your database. But unfortunately, there's also no shortage of vulnerabilities in the WordPress ecosystem that allow anybody to read arbitrary files on your file system. And if you have the credentials stored in your files, then it can also be exposed that way. And it is better because you have the ability. So it is, at least it's not mutable easily, so you can't easily change it. Clients can't change it. That's a good point. But from a security perspective, it's not that much better in my opinion. It's better, but not by a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
a lot of the. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's also pretty unique to WordPress. Like if you compare it with other, I'm not saying major because WordPress is like obviously super big, but other established development ecosystems, like whether it be Laravel, Symfony, or Ruby on Rails and other programming languages, like this is basically unheard of. Like dropping secrets in a hard-coded file, you always tend to use at least an encrypted environment file where you then have an encryption key and decrypt all secrets and inject them into the environment of the process, so they are never hard-coded, they're always only in memory in the process. Or you use stuff like AWS Key Management Service where you, or HashiCorp Vault. So this is like kind of like unheard of, basically. It's a practice that nobody uses besides WordPress. So yeah, it's better than storing it in a database.
Insecure. Yeah.
It's better than storing it in a database, but it's not ideal by any imagination.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly. And that's basically it. Like, right, if someone has access to your FTP, like they can just open your WP config and they have, here it is, here's all the information, here's their database password, like there it is. And allowing it to just be publicly readable, just as core practice in my mind. So I'm really excited that you've kind of launched this and taken it upon yourself to even offer the Vault portion for free. I mean, that's very generous, and I personally really appreciate it. Even though we are a Fortress member and user, but it's hopefully it's going to start a movement to have better practices across the entire WordPress ecosystem, and that's going to be big for everyone. Hopefully, right?
Yeah. But yeah, for this we're using the database storage because that is what Vaults and Pillars operates with. So it sits between basically WordPress and your database. It can't sit between WordPress and your file system.
Exactly. And actually, we'll do one thing as well here. We're actually going to pull up the PHPMyAdmin on this too.
Yeah.
That way we can do it and show everyone all of the available options rather than just using CLI, because a lot of people will use PHP instead, or PHPMyAdmin. So anyways, let's get back to what we were talking about before here. So FluentSMTP, as you can see, we're already rocking and rolling. We're able to send out emails. You can see here we have multiple emails configured on the homepage. We've just used the sample Fluent form that comes in the free plugin to be able to set up a form, so we can quickly just run through and run tests to show everyone not encrypted it works, encrypted it works, and then decrypted it works once we remove the pillar. Granted, once you have it set up, why remove it? But you know, there's use cases.
I mean, if you want to migrate out or whatever, there's always scenarios that we don't lock, you in.
Who does that? Perfect.
But
all right, cool.
Okay,
so we'll go through this.
Then do you want to show the Cloudflare one also real quick?
Yep. Yeah, we're going to run through that. So that you can see sending the messages just fine. If we come back in here to the message streams, we can click on the transactional and activity, and you can see the Vault test literally 10 seconds ago just sent that. And here's proof that it is actually sending through Cloud or through Postmark as an unencrypted Vault. Now coming back in, we come back down to here and Cloudflare. And you can see, since we're using a subdomain, we're already getting the notices, but we have it fully configured here with all of the basic information for a free Cloudflare plan. And it's already connected to our domain and everything like that through a Cloudflare API key in here.
Maybe enable the under attack mode once to see if that it can actually connect.
Get that, and then DNS. Oh, here we go. Under attack mode, you can see right there. And then we'll just turn it off, and then we'll reload. And you can see,
actually, there was like a note. Do it again on the WordPress site. There was like a notification on the bottom.
I didn't reload in the middle. Oops. All right, so that should be good. Now if we reload here, this should be good too. There it is.
There you go.
All right.
All right. Then let's start with the Cloudflare one, and then
okay. Yeah.
okay.
Sounds
so
good.
I'll in general, if you have like pretty much not every plugin, but many plugins integrate with some third-party service in WordPress. It doesn't, like we had like a couple examples with Stripe API keys or PayPal API keys, but it can also be stuff like, for example, many of you use services like, how is it called, the Imagify or what was it? This
Imagify, yeah.
Imagify, this image optimization service, and you certainly wouldn't want anyone to have your API key and then consume all your credits. Basically, even worse if you are billed per API call, or
Right.
your Google Maps API. If you, for example, using page builders, many of them allow you to have your Google Maps API key, and then this way you can connect to that. And you also wouldn't want anybody to change the line. And you also wouldn't want anybody to have access to that one. Yeah, but in general, the first thing I do pretty much is like I go into the UI, click through the settings if you want to go there, and I'll just think of it like, what of these could be like sensitive? So this is all configuration toggles, but usually when you install a plugin or configure it, it will ask you for input. Yeah. Yep. So I don't know where do you configure this, the API key?
Yeah, that is a great question. I don't even remember where I can change it.
Because it asks you that once.
Yeah, it asks one time and then that's it. So I think we might have to force it. Analytics, view analytics. Yeah, there's no way to change it.
Which is good.
It's a weird option.
I kind of liked it, because how often do you actually change your Cloudflare key on the live side? Probably never.
Right.
I kind of liked it, but okay, that makes it just more obvious. Once we installed the plugin, it asks you, like, before it did anything, like, hey, input your connect with Cloudflare, and then it's obvious that you want to basically protect your API key.
Yep.
The next thing we want to do is we want to find out where that API key is stored. Right now, Vaults and Pillars works with data that is stored in the WP options table, which is fortunately where 95% of plugins store their configuration. So you can pretty much protect all of these. In the future, we might be able to expand that to different data types, like user meter, post meter, whatever. But yeah, right now it's only for options, and we pretty much the first thing we need to do is find out what the name of the option is. And there are two ways which you can show both. It's like the first one is like Paul's doing here, check it in the PHPMyAdmin. And what I kind of prefer is using WP-CLI, which you can also show later. But yeah, let's do it first in the PHPMyAdmin, and then we can do the second one.
I'll just run through this real quick.
For FluentSMTP later, we can do it CLI.
Okay.
And then we have both.
So run through this. It's probably at the very end, of course, because it's just brand new plugins.
Yeah, you could also filter or search for anything that contains Cloudflare.
Yeah,
it will be somewhere in there.
No, there's only 7 pages, so there it is.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, Cloudflare API key. So this is like, I mean, I kind of don't like why the Cloudflare does it. They should know better. But yeah, this is the API key, and you really don't want anybody to have access to that. In this case,
and you can see it plain text, like nothing preventing anyone from just literally typing it in right now and gaining access to being able to mess with our stuff. So
yeah, hoping the users won't do that right now, but the viewers. But yeah, so that is really crucial. So Cloudflare has like very good documentation on what permissions actually an API key for WordPress should have, and I think they really they even have like a template where you can select like create API key for WordPress website. This is the newer API key which you should always use, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of you that still use like this but the previous API key format, the I don't know what they call it, legacy API keys or whatever.
Global, yeah.
Global
so if
API
you basically
keys.
Go in and then you click on profile, go to API tokens, you have your user API tokens, and then you have this one here, which is the global, which is what majority of people used to use a year plus ago, before they really started integrating user-based API tokens, which you can then restrict to permissions, and then you can restrict to even specific zones like we did today for this. So even if someone were to use this API token, they would only be able to access this specific website or this zone.
Regardless of whether you're using vaults and pillars or whether you plan to, like if you're still using these global tokens, like go update them, because if anybody gets access to that, I mean, it's literally game over. You could have like 100 sites in your Cloudflare agency account, and if I have the API key, I can redirect all of them. I can change the DNS for all of them. I can remove them. I mean, you can do everything. Everything that you can do in the Cloudflare dashboard, you can do with that API key, and you really don't want to have anybody have access to that.
Yep.
It's still,
I mean, they could even do stuff like injecting layers ahead of things, or header information, like tracking scripts, like all of that stuff. And it's not good.
It's not a situation that you want to be in, definitely.
Yep.
It's also bad with the restricted token, but not quite.
Yes.
So yeah, in this case, it was easy. What we have here is the option name is Cloudflare API key. And it's just, I call it like a covering vault. Covering in the sense that the sensitive value represents the entirety of that option, not just a subset. That makes sense.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just the option name, the option value is, there's nothing more to that. There are also, which we will see later with FluentSMTP, where you have plugins that store all of their settings in one option. For example, you see it above Fluent Mail settings, where it's just one option. And for Cloudflare, you see Cloudflare API key, Cloudflare API email. Okay, so now that we have the option name, then it's time for you to jump into the CLI.
Okay, we'll jump in here. Move this what's up. All right, and if you guys can see my screen, just shrink that up a little bit. Okay, so we're logged in as root. Basically, the second that you log in, we are here. So this is where you'll log into your GridPane account as the root user of that server. So Calvin, do I need to log in at like sudo user as the user, or like how are we moving through this next step?
It doesn't really matter. You can you can either run the GP fort script, which is for root only, but you can also, and I think for this demo, let's go into the system user, because later we have like some CLI commands that then we have to like take special care with the formatting. Just input the what's it called, title. You
did you want me to use root, or do you want me to use this?
No. What did it work? It's kind of small. I can see. Okay, yeah. Then go into
I don't know if I can zoom in. Sorry.
Then go into the site directory of that site.
Okay. And yes, I know that there are shortcuts to this, but I'm trying to show everyone every step of the way. All right. Not in the site directory, but I am in the before the site files.
Right, before the WordPress files, then go into the Fortress.
Okay.
This is now specific to GridPane, the locations, but create just nano config.json.
Okay.
All right, and then obviously this is all documented, but I mean, should I spell you out the syntax, like open it the closing brackets, opening and closing brackets?
Yeah, so I have the
just copy it from the docs. Yeah, if you go into the GitHub one, scroll up, in the search there, at the top, the search bar, type WordPress options, then you'll find that. Yeah. No, it's already there.
Oh, did I miss it?
You didn't click it.
Sorry.
There's like the where is it? Setting up vaults at the top. Yeah, that's the basic syntax. So copy that to start.
Okay. Drop back in here.
And then we only have to change the admin email, change that to what was it? Cloudflare API key, I think, yeah. Cloudflare slash it, yeah. Right, and then
right?
exit and save.
Cloudflare
Yeah.
API key, yep. Okay.
Looks good.
All right.
Exit and save.
Yeah, I was trying to connect to the VPN real quick. There we go. Exit, save. Okay.
And then you can run. Yeah, I think now you need to go into the htdocs.
Okay.
Run because we're a system user now.
Okay.
All right, now you can run WP Snicco fortress, Snicco / fortress / yeah. Shared config :test. All right, and then yes. So now we reloaded, validated, reloaded, and applied our configuration, and now you can run. So that configuration is now active. It will only become active until you run that command. Okay. It's heavily validated, so we try really hard to prevent you from shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah, so now you can, right now it doesn't really matter, but imagine you have like many vaults configured, then it's kind of like, basically the first time you visit a page where that option is used, it will encrypt it opportunistically. So in theory, you would not have to do anything, but if you have like many options, it's kind of like, how do you say? I mean, it's annoying to visit each plugin setting, whatever. So we also have a CLI command to encrypt and decrypt all options. It's WP, Snicco fortress, and then it's VNP for vaults and pillars. Space, VNP, space, options, : seal all.
Seal -all or just all in word?
Yeah, seal -all.
Okay.
And obviously these are all like step by step. It's all documented as process, so you don't have to remember that or anything. It's all in the docs. Seal all.
And this would seal everything in the options area that we've added to the config file.
Everything that you configured, yes.
Got it. And then we say yes, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
All right, and then now you should be able to see it in the database.
Okay. And we'll reload this page. Drop down to page 7.
Yep,
and
now we can
API
see.
key is completely locked up.
Now it's gone.
No
yeah, so you can't see that anymore. But so now if your site has a, I mean, you could even have the entire database compromised. Somebody could have access to your PHPMyAdmin. I mean, it's unlikely on GridPlane, but somebody could have literally access to your PHPMyAdmin and they would not be able to recover that API key. The only way to recover that key basically is if you can modify the running PHP, the file system, so that you can have runtime access to what is in memory, basically, or you can decrypt the secret at runtime, basically. But it's never stored in the database. It's never stored in the file. It's only available to the PHP runtime. So if, for example, if you were to layer on top something like GridPlane's immutable multi-tenancy, where you can't even change the file system in production, that is pretty much impossible to recover that key if you were an attacker. And nothing's impossible, but it's very, very hard.
Yeah, it would deter most people trying to gain access to it.
Yeah,
they would see that and be like, nah, I'm going to pass to go to somebody easier to attack. Yeah.
Definitely. We always like to say it's like you're way into diminishing returns. You could do more, but yeah, you won't gain much added security at that point. But obviously the important part now is, does that still work? Yeah, because obviously Cloudflare still needs access to the API key. They can't just use what's there. It's a gibberish. Yeah. Yep, so exactly. I mean, just go ahead and test. Go back into the admin dashboard.
So we'll just click a different page because it's gonna have us log in.
Yep.
And we're connected.
Looks like it.
It's working. We'll enable it. Reload as we go back. Yeah, we got a bunch of accounts. Stout.dev. And under attack mode. All right.
Pretty awesome.
Let's make sure It's working at the both ways. Disable and reload, and it's off. So it's working even though the key is fully encrypted. That's awesome.
So the Cloudflare plugin is still working. And the awesome part is that we didn't have to modify any code. So we didn't modify the actual plugin. We just added like a vault to the Fortress configuration, and Fortress basically imagine it like a translation layer. If Cloudflare wants to speak to the database, it talks to the translator first. And the database also, like if you have two people speaking a different language, and then you have like the mediator in between, if that makes sense. Imagine it like this.
For sure. It'd be like you talking German to me. I'd be like, sure, yeah, I don't know what you're saying. Without a translator. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all there is to it for simple options like this. It's not much more complicated. The only, I guess, hard part is identifying what you want to secure in the first place, or the name of that option, but it's pretty apparent. Just going to the database and that's it. There's not more to it.
That's awesome. That took us, we've been on the call for 28 minutes and we've already just encrypted this. And that was you walking me through it. Like I've never seen anything before, and never even really touched the database to be able to track stuff down. So this is huge. This is great. I'm excited. Do you want to move on to Postmark? Because that one I think is going to be a little bit more complicated because we're going to switch up to using CLI and.
So go first to the FluentSMTP tab.
Okay.
To the settings. So here it's like, if you look at that, it's what you want to secure. Basically, it's the API key.
The API
Maybe
key,
if you want to go back. So I don't know, logging. You could turn it into a pillar so nobody can turn it off, but it's whatever. Basically, what you want to secure is the connections. So if you have multiple connections, you want to secure connections. Why? Because if I were to get access to Paul's API key for Postmark, I could use that to send emails in his name, basically. So I could send to. I could probably also get the list of all emails that he sent, all contacts that are in Postmark. I could grab all of that and then send them like an email for, hey, client, check out this awesome crypto offer. I think it would go good with your website or whatever. You can do a lot of harm there, or just abuse it to send spam, your own spam.
And that's what most people end up doing.
They use your key to send spam to their own list or their own. Their own harvested list of emails, but they could also send to your clients.
And then you have to deal with domain reputation, IP address. You probably will get banned from Postmark, let alone however many emails that your plan came with. They will probably exceed that. So you'll have the costs associated with that as well. It's a bad rabbit hole to go down. So locking up that encryption key or the API key is really important, which is surprising that most people are just leaving it as plain text by default, which is bizarre. But hopefully this will fix that problem, right?
Yep. Now, for that, let's show the other way and do it with CLI.
Okay. So I'm still as the user.
Yeah, that's correct, in HTTP.
Okay. Perfect.
So the first thing we want to do is, again, identify the option name. We might not know, but there are many useful CLI commands from core that you can use for that. And what I always start out with is it's WP option list, and then what is it, hyphen or dash search equals, and then you can basically put whatever you suspect might be the case here. And then, no, it won't be Postmark because
that's right, because we're not using the Postmark plugin.
We're using most often. So every plugin in WordPress has like a slug, on WordPress.org, and most often it's that they use that as a prefix for their options. So you can use Fluent, and then there's a little trick. You can use a star, Fluent dash star, and then just run that, and then it will give you back any option no,
Oop.
without the dash.
There we go.
So now we have all options starting with Fluent. For example, you have also Fluent Forms, which is why you get that back. But it's pretty apparent that it's going to be the last one. Yeah, Fluent Mail settings. So now that we know, now that we know the option name, we can copy that option name.
Okay.
And now run the same command, but search for that exact option.
Okay.
And then and something about that again.
Oh, sorry.
Then add dash unserialize. You have a typo there.
Oops.
Unserialize.
I'll get it. We'll get there. No, just kidding.
Serialize.
Where are we at here?
You can also run dash help, and then you get all the options. Unserialize, and then dash. No, without the D. Unserialize.
Yes. Oh, I'm missing an I. Sorry.
There we go. But then unserialize, and then we'll do dash format JSON.
Format equals
again,
JSON.
Format equals JSON. Yeah. So again, you don't have to remember any of that. We have that all documented. Run that.
Okay.
So now it's JSON, but the output is the kind of like you can't really read anything. Yeah. So what you can do, again, bring that back up and then run a pipe symbol, the vertical pipe, and then JQ, which is like available on all BRIPM boxes for JSON formatting. Run that. And that looks already much better. Yeah. There we are interested in the option value because we want to see the structure of that option, because as we can see, as we previously mentioned, the Fluent SMTP plugin stores all of their settings in one option. And we could encrypt the entire option. It's also possible. It will work perfectly fine. In fact, if your site doesn't get a lot of traffic, it might not even matter. You can just do that and it's easier. But the way encryption works is the longer the input that you encrypt, the longer it's going to take. I mean, we're talking milliseconds here, fractions of a millisecond, but you have to remember that some plugins fetch these options a lot. And if you have like a really high traffic site, fractions of a millisecond add up. So if you're basically, if you need this, you need it, basically, if that makes sense. But yeah, we just want to showcase that you can encrypt fractions of the option. And for that, obviously, we need to determine what parts of that we want to encrypt. For example, we don't want to encrypt probably the mislog emails. Yeah, it's just a yes, that's nothing sensitive. We might want to lock it, and that maybe you can later talk about pillars. A pillar would allow you to lock that option so that nobody can turn it off in production or on, or vice versa. But really, what we're interested here is under the connections array, the connections key. We have like this, I mean, not gibberish, but this random string. This is what we're interested in.
This guy.
But why is it that random string? It's like kind of unique and internal to Fluent SMTP. Above that, we have like this mappings setting. Yeah. So you have your email, and then that string is the same one as the key of the connection. That makes sense.
Yep, that makes sense. I'll zoom in a little bit more too.
It's just a derivative hash. This has nothing to do with vaults and pillars at all. It's internal to how Fluent SMTP stores their data. So if you want, go ahead and copy that string real quick.
All right.
And then go back into the nano.
Well, we're going to do it this way, right? Through SFTP to show the different option.
Sure, that also works.
Yeah, so inside of the SFTP option inside of Fortress, so depending on how you connect, whether it's in the CLI or outside of that, you'll just go to the Fortress area, and then inside the config JSON, oops, the wrong button. will have access to the same information. So you can access it as a user or as the server, however you prefer to access it. That's kind of the best way to gain access there, I guess. So we've already included this one. Yeah.
You need
now what?
A comma to get to the new line, and then you need to start with the top level name of the option, which was Fluent Mail -settings, I think. Fluent Mail -settings. And then remember, this is why we brought up the structure to begin with, was to know like the hierarchy of that option. So the top level key, there was like the connections. Yeah. So in each level in that JSON structure, basically in the array, will be represented in the config by a dot. It's like a common convention in programming that a dot represents like one layer of navigation or hierarchy. So make it Fluent Mail settings dot, and then paste what you copied, this long string. Okay. And then now we're basically in the, I'm pointing at the screen, but we can see it.
we're in this bracket here.
We're in that bracket, and then we see that we have the provider settings. So it's dot provider settings. Okay. And then it's dot API key.
Makes sense.
And then again, a colon and the brackets. Yeah, without comma. And that's important. And the way we did it right now is we only encrypt that one part of this entire structure, which, and some plugins, they store huge amounts of data in one setting, which is what makes this very, very fast. And we have like benchmarks for this. It's in fact, it is sometimes faster than without vaults at all, due to some implementation details. But this is because we very selectively and intelligently encrypt only parts of this option. It makes it very fast, and it doesn't encrypt stuff that you don't need encrypted. It doesn't matter right now, but we also have like sort of, we call it strict mode, and I want to touch on it only briefly. But if you in production, you should enable the strict mode, which will change the behavior a bit in edge cases. So for example, by default, if you would have that vault, but the option doesn't exist in a database, and the plugin were to use that option, normally WordPress returns a default, maybe an empty array, and then the plugin would basically repopulate the options from scratch again. From the defaults. Yeah, that is allowed by like this, the way you have it, that will be the behavior. If you turn on the strict mode, it will throw an exception or not allow that, basically because we want to prevent an attacker, for example, deleting an option in a database, either directly or through a vulnerability, and in that manner force your plugin to, for example, return to potentially insecure default settings, if that makes sense. There are a bunch of other different applications where we have them all documented. I don't want to go into all of that. The other important one is the immutability. Right now, vaults are mutable. So you could, for example, change your Postmark API key right now. If you turn on the strict mode, it will make every single of these vaults immutable. So you can't change them anymore. You can only change them if you deploy a new version of the configuration, basically, and reload.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And that is important here. For example, we could be, let's be lazy and just say, yeah, I mean, I could encrypt the entire Fluent Mail settings. The performance doesn't matter for me. But what that would mean is the Fluent Mail settings, you wouldn't be able to change any settings in production mode if you turn it on. So the entire option is locked. So you can't change your sender mail. You can't change your from name or whatever. I mean, it's kind of fine. You don't really change these things too often. But there might be other plugins where that might not be ideal, where you have like options where you treat them where you tweak them regularly. So that is something to consider, which is why we went all the way to a very selective key here. But yeah, let's exit that or save it, I guess.
Okay. It'll pop up here in a second. There we go. Okay.
And then we need to go back, reload the config. Yep. Yes. and then again, you have that in history, the seal all.
We'll get there. There we go.
Yep.
All right.
And now run the last command where you list the option again. This one. No, didn't work. Let's see. It's fluent mail settings.
Spell it. Let's see. Fluent mail hyphen settings. Fluent mail hyphen settings.
It looks good. Oh, we forgot the connections.
Yep.
It's dot connections.
There we go. Save. And we'll do the same thing real quick here. As soon as it uploads. Upload. Yeah. Okay. And yes. One more. Yes. And check.
There we go. So now this is how the option looks in the database. We're now just in a more like way that is easier to take in visually. But you can see everything is untouched, and the only thing that is encrypted is this one part of it, the API key. The rest stayed the same.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I won't even go into how it all works. It's complicated. But let's just try sending an email.
Okay, let's reload page here.
And try sending a test email maybe there.
So it's here. Like it's not throwing any errors, which is great. Email test, we'll use our default here. Oh, paul.stout at iCloud.com. Send. Delivered successfully. Logs. Here it is. Inside of postmark, we'll reload our list here. We should have one right there. And there it is. Waiting for us. Yep. That one was a while ago. Let's try this again. How did that one get here so quick?
This is the old one, yeah?
Yep, this is the one from 11.11 when we first tested. Oh, it's still checking. It doesn't like that I'm on a webinar. Go slow. Well, that's okay. It does work.
Maybe check the logs to see if it went out.
Shows delivered 11.11 activity. There it is, 11:46 processed, which means it should show up here in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, if it reached postmark, there's nothing.
There's slight delays on all this stuff, but that's all right. Suppression, activity. And now we're just waiting for it to be processed through iCloud, but it is there. It did send. We can see here's the email it was sent to from, you can see vault test from everything. Here's the email that was sent. And it will show up at some point, pending iCloud doesn't block it thinking it's spam, because, you know, that's a possibility too. But not related to what we're talking about today.
If you want to go, if you're going back into the CLI for it. Now imagine, for example, some people have like multiple connections, so they use like SES for one thing, and then they use with FluentSMTP postmark for another thing. What you could do is you could replicate the same thing with a different mapping. So you would have the way it works in FluentSMTP. It's internal to their plugin. Each email provider basically maps to one sender email. Sorry.
Okay.
So if you were to send from SES, it would have to be a different sender email, and you'd also have a second connection.
Got it. Yeah.
What you could also do is, instead of encrypt making connections dot long string the vault, you could just encrypt all connections. That would also work.
Oh,
it would be easier, but then again, that is also perfectly fine. It just has the downside if you turn on this strict mode that I mentioned, that you can't, for example, manage the sender name, so you couldn't change Paul Stout to something different,
right? Which
might be fine. It depends. Sure. I guess you don't send it, you don't change it too often.
No, that would be pretty unusual, but
I guess let's. So this is all there is to vaults, pretty much, and this is like this right here is a very complex case. So the mapping and figuring that out, this is pretty complex, which is why we chose it, and also because a lot of people requested it. usually it's the easy option as in the Cloudflare scenario, or if you have like this nested option, it's typically like one level. So you have settings, and then you have like the API key at the top level, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And what I like about this is like, it's, even if you mess up, like we missed the connections thing, it doesn't like throw a critical error and break the whole site like most things end up doing. So this is nice that you can like, that didn't quite work, but
if you add a vault that's like where the corresponding option name doesn't exist, it doesn't happen. I mean, it doesn't exist, so your site will never try calling that. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I love that. That's great. Do we want to open it up for questions, because we're about 12 minutes out from
let's do a pillar real quick. We'll do that real quick. Yeah,
let's do it.
So go into the admin dashboard, to the general settings.
Okay.
So right now there you have this membership and new user default role. Yeah, this is a way that a lot of sites get hacked, where we have like a vulnerability, and this was very recent. For example, if you remember, there was one vulnerability. It was either an Elementor or some super popular Elementor add-on. Don't want to specify. One of two. Yeah, like in the last 1 or 2 months.
Yep.
That had a vulnerability that will allow anybody, like without authentication, to update random options on the site. So what they would do is programmatically, or basically from the command line, they would turn on this and do it real quick. This user can register option, that anyone can register. And then they would turn the default role to administrator,
which is ridiculous, but yes.
Yeah, that is it's crazy that is allowed, but then save the settings.
Okay.
So now if you register on that site in the front end, you're an admin, and that way they gained complete access to the site. And these settings are typically in WordPress, it's like super legacy. It's for ease of use, basically. Yeah. But like, think about it. How often do you change these things on a live website? Like never. Maybe you maybe change it one time if you have like for example, if you use WooCommerce, maybe you turn the default role to customer or something. Yeah. But you never, it's not like you go in there and change these things daily. So there's really no reason that they should be able to change. You know, or your client messing, well, your client shouldn't be admin to begin with, but you don't want to accidentally enable that, or it should just not be possible to change that without deploying a new version of that site or configuration, which is also how it's handled in like more security mature ecosystems, like I previously mentioned, like Laravel, Symfony, whatever people use to develop real applications.
I love how you say real applications. I love that.
No, it's like, and that's what I was going to say. What many people use WordPress now to create real applications. It's not like a blog platform anymore. Like people build their entire business on that, basically. And apps that integrate with multiple like third-party services and whatever. So WordPress evolved in that way, but the security and the threat model didn't, if that makes sense. It's still this ease of use above all, if that makes sense.
It's kind of a free-for-all for security.
Let's throw a pillar onto that. Go into the config. Into the, it is fine. And after the closing bracket of the option vaults, a new comma, and then it's option pillars.
All right.
Pillars : open. And the first one is default role. I know that, like, but we have that document as well, default role, and then bracket, opening brackets. So, And now you need to add value. So now you actually need to specify what you want to be locked to, and make it a value : subscriber. And now after the default role bracket, comma, and edit its users can register. Either that or without the S, but I think it's like that. Can register, and then colon, and value, colon, string. So it's like a 0 basically, but make it a string, not an, no, that,
Okay.
yeah, like that. And yeah, reload that configuration.
Okay. And then I'm assuming we're going to jump back in here and do the same config test and then seal, or
you can do config test. We can do it without it. It doesn't matter, because
okay.
the first time you load that, it will work. But reload the config. Yep. And now go to the admin page again.
Okay.
So it was turned on. Now reload that. Still turned on, or maybe we need to seal it.
No. Let's seal real quick. Yes. There we go. Off and back to subscriber. Now, can I
Yep.
change it?
Yeah,
Will it
try.
do anything?
Try. This should not have worked.
Uh-oh. I broke it.
Try it again. Do you have object caching enabled on the tab by any chance?
No, I purposefully disabled object caching just to be sure.
All right. Can you show me the configuration again?
Cache off object.
Oh, yeah, it should work regardless. But show me the configuration again.
Yep. Here.
Option pillars, default role, users can register. Let me check if you have a typo. Roles and pillars.
Because it did set it correctly when we
Yeah,
logged it in, but it
did
didn't.
set it correctly.
Yeah.
Default role value subscriber. That's kind of odd. Try it again.
Yeah.
Oh, can you
sure.
go back into the terminal, please?
Okay.
And run the shared, and then run cache. So remove that. No, remove that.
Oops. Nope. Okay. WP Fortress shared.
And then cache : config to see what we actually have applied there.
The fingers are cold. There we go.
Option
So
pillars. It has it. Users can register. Try it again, please. That's kind of weird, because we use that exact same config on our side.
And it sets it right back. So it might have just been cached because
Try it again.
shape changes and it's back. Yep.
No, and on the top, that was what I was looking for. The default role option cannot be updated. So it tells you like which, and it also works for partial ones. So maybe try adding a tagline there, this blank field. And then try changing the default role again in the same update, and then it should go through as a partial update. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can't change that, and obviously that is not restricted to the admin dashboard. So wherever one would be able to update options programmatically through vulnerability, whatever, it won't work. And even if you go into the database, so actually go into the database so you can see what's in there.
Yeah.
There is this, go to the first page. The users can register. Yeah, you see it's a Fortress value pillar, option 5.
Okay.
So we changed it so that it's kind of like not confusing why the database says something different than
the
UI. But even if you were
awesome.
to change that there, it will not reflect that. So you, even if you have full access to the database, you can't manipulate that value to be anything but turned off. Unless again, you can change the file system.
Yeah.
So this is like the distinction. Pillars are not sensitive in nature. In this case, it's just a 1 or a 0. It's not sensitive, but it's sensitive in a way if you change it without having the proper authentication for that.
Got it. I love that.
And yeah.
Are we able to lock specific users to a specific role?
No, you can't do that, because that is you can do that in the future probably, but that is information stored in the user meta table.
Okay.
It's not stored in the options table.
Got
the
it.
options table stores the mapping basically between role and capability.
Got it. And this is mainly just the options table, whatever the values are. Okay. That makes sense.
And the user roles are stored in a different table, and that work as an entirely different mechanism, which we don't support right now.
Got it.
but might in the
Perfect.
future.
Well, I'm
Right.
excited
And
to
that's
look forward
about
to the future.
that's about it.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, at this point, it looks like we got a couple people still watching. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the Q&A and we will run through any questions you guys have. And if not, enjoy the rest of your day because it's still early some places, right? It's noon here.
Yeah,
it's late where Calvin is.
It's not 9 p.m. for me.
Ooh. Yikes. Perfect. And
Right, doesn't
we
look like it.
Doesn't look like any questions are coming in yet. But that's okay. We'll be posting a modified version of this later. We'll probably post it in the GridPane group, possibly YouTube, etc. But since this is pretty specific to GridPane users at this point, yeah, it might make most sense there, but we will
yeah, I guess you can just upload it to your YouTube and then we can share the YouTube link in the group.
For sure.
That's why we always do it, basically.
Perfect.
Right.
That works for me. It looks
Sounds
like
good.
yeah, a couple people, but we'll wrap up here. I'll hang out for a couple minutes or a minute and a half, whatever it is. So if you guys do have questions or anything like that, we give you time because Zoom typically has a little bit of a delay on when we talk to the time that it shows up for everybody else. So we'll just hang out for a couple of minutes and then yeah, go from there. Is there any other things that you want to touch on while we're kind of waiting for questions to come through?
I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it. We like touch the surface in a way, but with that what we touched, you can already do a lot. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have so much documentation on this feature for all kinds of use cases, workflows, how you were to do staging, production pushes, and all of these things, which we didn't touch on right now. We did right now what you should never do, like on a live production side, figure out how these work, if this works, if it doesn't work. You should always test this with your plugins, for example. Don't just edit without testing. For example, in this case, that Cloudflare can still connect, test it, and then we have all the proper workflows, how to get from staging to production documented.
Definitely. And we'll probably see if we can do some more of these like quick off the cuff videos just to run through to make sure that we're touching on kind of all of that stuff. And like, I don't know, the various new features and stuff like that. I'm happy to sit down and have you walk me through it like I'm an idiot, because that's, I think, the easiest way for people to learn, right? Perfect. All right, man. I appreciate your time today, and thanks for walking me through this. And I'm really excited to start locking stuff down.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your evening. Get some rest.
See you.
All right, man. Bye.